So it is episode 2, and not too long after episode 1, so that's a good sign. Hi there, I'm Nikiana, and these are my field notes. In this episode, we've got a little bit of stenciling going on. There's going to be some Gelli prints later, and I think we even break into the spray inks. So stay tuned for that. So this past week, stenciling was really the go-to process that I just really dove into. And I think that's where I was at this week because it was easy, simple, just mix up some colors and then put down the stencil and brush it on. Don't have to think too hard. It's just procedural because, I just grabbed paper after paper after paper and just put stencils on them. I don't know what I'm going to use them for, but, that's kind of half the fun of it. And because it's so procedural, I don't get precious about any of it either. It's like, okay, one doesn't look that great, whatever. I'm just going to throw it in the pile and I'll get back to it later. And I think this week I was just sort of trying to invite ease into my process. I know for me right now, I'm in the middle of a transitional season. I work hospitality, so my home base is in New Hampshire, but in the summertime, I work hospitality in Maine. And this is the first weekend coming up of the season, so I'm back to work starting Sunday, and I'm going to spend the summer on the road, and I've got a partner who's a musician, so when I'm not working, a lot of the times there's community events, and I spend a lot of the summer traveling, which is to say that, right now is not, the best time for me to be starting a great big art project. Yeah, in a sense, I'm sort of doing that with starting to create these videos. The timing of that does seem a little, maybe not the best planned and timed, but, I also feel like that this is a project that might help keep me committed to my art practice while I'm on the road this summer. But I don't know. It's an experiment. At any rate, I'm trying to build some momentum with making videos, and I'm trying to film a little bit ahead of myself so I have something to react to in future episodes too, while still kind of trying to pack up my car and get ready to mostly be on the road this summer. So all of that is happening in the background of making these little videos and putting these stencils onto old Gelli prints, because I just need an outlet for myself right now, so I'm not thinking about all of the crazy things I need to get done before I have to leave. And I really like the print that I was working on here. It is just so bold with the black and the lime green. This was probably one of my favorites that came out of this session. I did end up making some really good headway yesterday. My little art space that you see here, a little bit off camera, was extremely cluttered. So I took some time and just pulled everything off of that particular counter and just reorged everything so it's nice and clean, and it will be ready for me when I am back home again, so I can just hit the ground running and film then. And I'm also going to take my gear on the road and try to sneak in a little bit of art making videos here and there. And I think the fact that I'm doing things as a voiceover probably helps, because I can just do this, and if I'm around other people, I can still have my conversations and record, but I don't have to record sound because I'm going to do that later. So I'm very much still in the stage of having a YouTube channel that I'm just this is sustainable. I can do this, even though I'm doing other things in my life, and it seems kind of crazy to be trying to take this on now. But I feel like it's doable, And I feel like it's also going to be a good outlet to maybe like start, you know, pulling through the collection of art I have made and see what I do have, because I mean, I do a ton of gel prints. And one of the things that happens when you're doing a ton of gel prints, as I'm sure a lot of you watching this probably already know, if you're into doing this, you can create yourself a rather large stack of papers in a relatively short amount of time. And the downside to that is it's really hard to tell what you have. And sometimes I need an incentive to go through and look at all of the things that I've made and done, because otherwise I don't know what I have going on. It's incredibly hard for me to tell when I have a finished piece done, like, because I have so much going. Because like what you're seeing right here is just like the tip of the iceberg, really. Because most of this stuff that I'm working on here is, it's all like on printer paper, and you know, they're not like finished art pieces. They're papers to be used in other art projects, whether that be art journals or stuff on canvas, stuff on cardstock, you know. So like I have lots of bits and pieces and clutter and mess in my art practice. And one of the things that I do find is helpful about my traveling season is like I have to make really intentional choices, because like I cannot bring all of my art supplies with me. Realistically, it's not going to fit in my car, and realistically I'm probably not going to use everything. But figuring out like little processes that I can do on the go, stenciling will definitely be probably a big one this summer. Is what I'm trying to figure out right now. What do I want to prioritize? And I feel like now is probably as good a time as ever to start documenting some of this. So here we are, and this is what we're doing. And I'm still trying to convince myself that I'm not being a little bit crazy. But you know, so it goes. Oh, this print right here came out so unexpectedly good. I ended up mixing some unbleached titanium and I think it's lavender. I don't remember exactly what that color name is. It turned out to be a very pale kind of lavender color. And the way it ended up looking with this print is just, oh, it's so good. It's so good. Wait till I pull this off. Like, oh, look at that. Look at that. And then I'm repositioning it so I can put a little bit more stencil on it, because it's not quite the same size. But, oh, this one was so good. So this particular trip, I'm going to be up in Maine for a week, and then I'm going to be home for a couple of days, and then I think I'm up for 2 weeks, and then we're into June. And you may have heard a little meow in there because Izzy wanted to put in her 2 cents, which is she does not like it when Mommy runs off to Maine. She doth protest. But my parents spoil her rotten while she's here, so she doesn't really have that much to complain about. And that one was one of my palette pulls. Just pulling a print to clean off the plate. And now we are shifting gears here. And playing with some tissue paper. I had forgot that I had a stash of tissue. And then I remembered. And then I was like, you know what? Let's start playing with some tissue paper and see what happens. I think the inspiration for this was I was watching Eddie Makes Art. He did a video recently about, I think, one of his latest kind of art journal adventures. And he had these prints that were on tissue paper, and there was black paint on them, and and he started using spray inks, and it inspired me to play with some tissue paper and some spray ink. And we'll get to the spray ink part later, so you can see how that works out. But right here, I'm working on putting some of that black paint onto some tissue paper. And then it kind of spiraled into some gel print making that wasn't on tissue paper as well, because that left kind of some grunge on the plate. So I started to run with that here, and just, added a little more black paint. That tube, I think, was beginning to run out too, so that can sometimes be a fun thing to actually play with the gel plate, because you get kind of an inconsistent amount of paint. Pulling that stencil with some tissue paper. And this is I don't even think is wet strength tissue. This is just tissue paper that you buy at the store to put in gift bags. This is not special tissue paper. And I have a bunch of it because I think at one point I was very like smitten with Mary Beth Quinn's videos, and she does a lot of collage with tissue paper, and she makes beautiful florals. I got very like obsessed with her process, and then bought a bunch of tissue paper, and then like didn't use it. So here's me attempting to use some of that tissue paper I bought. And here I'm, playing around with some different stencils and just making some black marks on tissue paper. Not being precious about that at all either. And the stencils can be kind of a fun way to add texture to your gel prints too, because it will leave paint behind. And sometimes in inconsistent ways, which is fun. And now I'm switching over to like what's going on the other plate, which I'm definitely struggling to get that paint out at this point. Yeah. Oh, I love that way I rolled that one out, because a lot of the times too, when you're like at the end of like a paint tube and it's really splattery when it comes out, like you can get really interesting patterns on your brayer itself. And I think that this is a really good example of doing that here. And I'm adding some stamping, just adding more texture into an already pretty textured print, like, or two prints actually. Adding some more stencils. I don't think is super happy with how this part of it kind of came out. Or at least I wasn't feeling super confident about it at the time. I do think the paper that emerged out of it did look incredible though. But I definitely was feeling it was like, it didn't like lift in a super cool way, but like, I don't know, I'm just kind of keep going with this. I think sometimes, I mean, it's not about perfection at all. It's really all about making imperfections and marks. But there's like some really interesting stuff kind of going on there too. And here we are coming in with the pull layer. So I'm doing a 3-color pull layer here that I'm going to brayer out with a small brayer. This is definitely a paint distribution method that I picked up from watching Art Whisperer 88, Fulton Sim, because he makes these absolutely gorgeous abstract prints. where the colors are blended kind of loosely, and like I was very much inspired with from him with like that way of distributing paint. Taking my Baron and pushing that down. I am pulling these with cardstock, 110 cardstock, which I'm kind of on the fence on what I feel about 110 cardstock, because like I feel like it's a step down from pulling with Bristol paper, but I also can't afford to pull on Bristol paper all the time, not with the amount of prints that I make. So I do have some Bristol paper if in case like I have something that I feel like will end up looking really, really great if the pull turns out, and I will sometimes take a chance, but more often than that I am pulling with 110. And now we're putting down that second print. And I did edit this quite a little for time's sake. Like, these sat for a few minutes before I pulled them. And that's the first one. Very kind of grungy and textury, and is probably going to make a great background for some sort of collage. And then we have the second one. I really actually like the way the second one came out. They're both great, though. Yeah. All right, and now we're back to the tissue paper. And we're going to put some of the spray ink, and very similarly what Eddie did in his video, I sprayed it down with water, which made the paper so incredibly fragile. And I may have put a little too much water, and I probably should have experimented with not putting water and just putting the ink down, but you know, like, it's experimental. And then I brushed it out a little bit for make sure like there was some even coverage, and blended it out a little bit. And the one thing I do think I found, because I did a few of these, was if you're going to be working with tissue paper and you're going to get it wet, leave a corner of it dry. Because it is so much easier to pull up if you leave like a little strip of dry paper. And I did that with this first one. I did not do that with some of the others I made. And I didn't film all of the ones I did either in this session. Because I don't film everything, because I don't need to film everything. But I'm trying to give you a taste of what my process is like. But yeah, this is the spray ink on the second one. This one had a lot more black. And the other thing too is, like, I put these face down, so the acrylic paint is on the bottom. And then I put the spray ink on the back side, so you weren't covering the acrylic paint. So that works pretty well. And this one was super wet. And then I put it on some white paper, which really made it pop. Yeah, that one came out super cool. All right, and so this is what I actually ended up putting in one of my art journals, out of the papers that I made in that session, which were mostly tissue papers. That top bit was computer paper that I tried the same technique, and it worked pretty well. It muted the colors a little bit more, but overall I found that the technique worked just as well with, you know, computer paper. And here we are, back to stenciling again. When I did my little cleanup yesterday, I found a whole bunch of stencils that I forgot I had because they were buried in a box, and I have ADHD, so anything that gets buried doesn't exist in my world. And every once in a while, I get the gumption up to rearrange things, and I'm like, oh, this thing that I forgot I had that I can use. So this was a little bit of celebratory. I did a thing, I cleaned a thing. Even though I didn't clean all of the things, I'm gonna make myself some art and have some art time with these stencils I forgot I had and probably haven't used in probably over a year. So it was like finding a new treasure in amongst all of the treasures. So I'm not sure how I felt about that pink that I mixed. It was mixed with a red and white. And I tend to be more of a magenta pink, so like the kind of the corally pink that was is not necessarily to my taste. But, you know, you can always add other layers. But yeah. I really liked how this stencil spiced up this print. It came out pretty cool. Yeah, I like that one a lot. And now we're getting into some book pages, trying to figure out what stencil I want to use, because there was a bunch of them. Like, those are just like cardboard stencils from Michaels. They're not gonna last forever. Like, some of them feel pretty fragile at this point because I've used them a bunch. But they work. So, I guess in kind of in conclusion, wrapping this up in the next 5 minutes or so, I feel like I'm going through a little bit of a transition as the season changes and new priorities for the new season, but I'm feeling optimistic about this summer, despite the fact that, like, I feel like there's just an overall lack of optimism in the world. I mean, I feel like I have to remain optimistic out of spite, really. You know? Now, this magenta print, I feel like I wasn't sure whether I wanted to put something on it or not in the first place. And then I'm not sure I really love the stencil that I put on it, but what's done is done. It didn't look terrible. I can always cut it up and use it in something else. And it doesn't look bad. I don't know. I don't know about this one. Now, this next one was, I think, one of those prints that left something behind on the plate. It was the ghost print. There wasn't a whole lot of an image there, so I just pulled it with some silver paint, and it was kind of lackluster, but I feel like this stencil really made this one pop a lot. Just really happy with this one. There it is. And it's so shiny. And here we are at the last print of the day, so you know what to do. Like it, share it, comment on it. Let me know what you think. What are you guys working on? All of the things. I really liked this particular print because, like, the paint was drying out, so it was this really subtle dry brushing pattern that kind of came out of this one. Came out really good. And have a great day, you guys.